Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Jaya Gopi Jana Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Nanam Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. That's okay. Nam Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachattadesha Tanine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol. All right, got a new chapter today and a new section, you could say. We've officially concluded the episode of Paranjana. And the allegory of Paranjana, the pastime of King Patinavari being instructed by Narada Muni. And now we are in chapter 30, beginning chapter 30, the activities of the Prachetas. Prachetas are the sons of King Patinavari. So we previously heard about them. See if I can find it. Before, right leading up to this, there was the chapter called Chanting the Songs Sung by Lord Shiva. And so we heard how the sons of King Patinavari went to execute austerities in preparation for eventually taking over the kingdom of their father. So this is from chapter 24, text 13. King Patinavari begot 10 children in the womb of Shatadruti. All of them were equally endowed with religiosity, and all of them were known as the Prachetas. There were 10. This is text 14, when all these Prachetas were ordered by their father to marry and beget children, they all entered the ocean and practiced austerities and penances for 10,000 years. Thus they worshipped the master of all austerity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When all the sons of Patinavari left home to execute austerities, they met Lord Shiva, who out of great mercy instructed them about the absolute truth. All the sons of Patinavari meditated upon the instructions, chanting and worshipping them with great care and attention. So that's a summary of that. That was the Prachetas. And now we're hearing about their activities. What happened? We had the whole episode of King Patinavari, and now we're hearing about his descendants. All right, so text 1. Vidura uvacha ye tvaya vihita brahman sutta prachinavarhishaha te rudra gitena harim siddhim apu pritoshyakam. Vidura inquired from Maitreya, O Brahmana, you formerly spoke about the sons of Prachinavarhi, and informed me that they satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead by chanting a song composed by Lord Shiva. What did they achieve in this way? What did they achieve? So Vidura is asking Maitreya, please tell me more about them. Let's see if this is going to update for me. I have my notes here on my phone, and yeah, there it is. Oh, that's the wrong note. Krishna, Krishna. All right. So, Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, here the words Siddhim Apu, or achieve perfection, are very important. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.3, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. Out of many, many millions of people, one may be interested in learning how to attain success in spiritual matters. So it's significant. The Prachetas, they were ordered to beget children. So normally, if a son in the modern era were told by his father, go beget children, he'd just go find, maybe go find a woman and then get going. Even many young men are doing so without the blessings of their parents, in defiance of their parents. There's accidental begetting of children these days. What to speak of the care that was observed by the Prachetas. They received this order and they prepared themselves for that. So it's very, very significant that we pay attention and see how these great personalities are approaching their worldly duties. It's not that worldly duties are divorced from spiritual life. They're like parallel tracks. Our worldly dharma supports our spiritual dharma, and vice versa. And until we're at a fairly advanced stage of devotional service, we can't neglect our worldly duties. So we should take them very seriously. And the Prachetas knew that they would attract a wife, a qualified wife, by performing austerities. If you want anything in this world, the best way to obtain it is through austerity and sacrifice. Even the most of the rich people of today, they have, it's a generalization, but we'll just say that a significant number of wealthy people today, they had to work very hard to obtain their wealth. And the people who are wealthy and stay wealthy, they have to work equally hard to maintain it. So there's a certain attitude adjustment or identity adjustment. Most of us are brought up in this suburban American culture of entitlement and everything coming so easy. The idea of working hard is so foreign to us, actually. That I would have to work hard just to maintain myself. Okay, do you want to just listen? You can just listen. You don't have to do any more letters. You did really good. You did a whole page B. Good job. And A too. Nice. That's okay. We'll look at that later. Okay.
I can do the top because.
I'll clean it later. Don't worry. I'll clean it later.
The top was already done by me
last night. So we have everything handed to us in the West. Everything is handed to us. It's very easy. Our whole culture, $1 in America is worth so many bills of, an equivalent currency in the third world. So just by going out and begging for an hour in New York, you can make more than somebody in the third world can make in like a week of hard labor. So we have the deck is stacked in our favor here in the West. But we don't, so the downside is that we don't have any habit of working hard. And so we have to revive that culture. It's going to take a few generations before people who are born in the Hare Krishna movement actually are qualified to be born into it in one sense. Maybe the birth is there, the qualification of birth is there, but then the training that accompanies that birth, our culture has to catch up with that. So we want to take help from the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the point, is that in the Bhagavatam you see so many examples of all the different phases of life. And so we want to try to emulate to the best of our capacity. And so it begins with just accepting that human life is meant for austerity, tapasya, hard work, no matter what age, no matter what class we're in, what our occupation is. It's meant for tapasya. And actually that tapasya, that hard work, is so gratifying. You feel so good when you have a day filled with productive activity, that you actually did something worthwhile to maintain yourself. You didn't rely completely on the mercy of somebody else to maintain you. And you did something maybe to help others also. It's very, very uplifting for the consciousness, very satisfying. All right, text 2. Kim barhaspatyeha paratravata kaivalyanatha priyaparshivardhanaha asadya devam girisham yadrichaya prapu param nunam attha prachetasa. My dear Barhaspatya, what did the sons of King Barhishat, known as the Prachetas, obtain after meeting Lord Shiva, who is very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the bestower of liberation? Certainly they were transferred to the spiritual world, but apart from that, what did they obtain within this material world, either in this life or in other lives? So here, the question being asked is, what was the result of their austerities? What material result did they get? Yeah. Okay. What material result did they get? So we know that doing these types of austerities and getting the blessings of a personality like Lord Shiva, definitely you're going to make spiritual advancement. But Vidura is also inquiring, what material results did they obtain? Because he knows that the living entities who are hearing this Bhagavatam, and also, you know, for the sake of whoever else may have been present at that time, if anyone, or just the Lord impelled him to ask this question for the sake of others who would hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. What material results did they get? Because we need incentives. Everybody needs incentives. Nobody does anything without some aim in mind, some purpose. Philosophically, this is called prayojana. This is the goal, the objective of our activities. And everybody has some objective. The whole life of the mind is based on prayojana, what you're desiring, what you're seeking, what you want to obtain. And so we need to have some desired object in our mind to move forward. If we're not clear where we're going and what we're doing our activities for, then we'll very quickly lose inspiration. Or we'll just get derailed by some other object of desire that comes into the mind, and then we start going on that path. So we want to be very clear why we're doing what we're doing, and we also should not be so fanatic to think that material desires are can just be done away with so easily. You know, the religious fanatic in his false enthusiasm thinks, now I'm going to be a pure devotee and I'm done with material life because I say so. But it's actually a great accomplishment. It takes generally many years of practice to come to that stage of actually being free from material desires. And so what you have to do is you have to find a way to take whatever momentum you have in life based on your current conditioning and harness that to move forward on the spiritual path. So whatever desires you already have, many of them are fair game. They can be applied in spiritual life. You want to have a family? Go ahead, have a family. You should feel encouraged to do that. You should feel empowered that the Lord is extremely pleased when you approach your family duties in the right mood. It's extremely pleasing to the Lord. So much so that in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, I am that sex life that is performed according to religious principles. Many, many people in the Srimad Bhagavatam, exalted people, wanted to have children. There's Kardama Muni, there's Nabhi, there's King Chitraketu. Didn't work out as well for him as for the others, but still he learned his lessons and he became liberated. And it was because he used that desire and took shelter of a great soul, Angira Muni and Narada. So the point is that we have to use whatever we have already available. If we don't have any genuine inspiration to pursue prema, because it's still a very abstract concept to us, or just because our attachments are too strong to the material energy, then whatever we're attached to, we should use to move forward in our Krishna consciousness. If you want to be a great musician, become a great musician doing Hare Krishna tunes and bhajans and so on, spreading the holy name. If you want to become a millionaire and donate a significant portion of your millions of dollars to Krishna conscious preaching, book distribution and printing and so on. So many things are fair game. And when we realize that the results of the austerities that these devotees are performing are unimaginable, even on the material plane, what to speak of the spiritual results of their sacrifices. When we hear about the material results, that by doing these austerities, one can obtain everything desirable within the three worlds. Anything you could desire, you can have through the performance of bhakti yoga. There's a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam that's very important to know. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham. That no matter whether you're akama, free from desire, sarva kama, you have all material desires, or you're moksha kama, you're desiring liberation, you should perform devotional service to Krishna. Because somehow or other, he'll give you all of the material results that you require. There's no other process you need to take shelter of. We can be confident. Look at Sudama. Sudama was averse to wealth, actually. Our acharyas comment that it's because he was averse to wealth. He had an attachment to poverty, that Krishna blessed him with riches beyond his wildest dreams, simply to break him of that conception that bhakti means poverty. How many of us have that conception today still, that bhakti means poverty? That in order to be saintly, you have to be poor and materially unaccomplished, materially, in some certain respects, useless, like an American hippie. Because those are the people who joined the movement, and many of them were materially inept. Actually, the ones who did, not all of them, but many of those who ended up doing great service to the movement, they were materially very, very expert. They were very good at navigating the material energy, getting things done for Krishna. So here Vidura is asking this question, what did they obtain? So that we can hear that by doing these austerities, it's not that you just get suffering, you get enjoyment beyond your wildest dreams, material and spiritual. So we shouldn't be so fanatic that we deny ourselves the enjoyment that anyway we're coveting. Anyway we want it, we want material enjoyment. Anyway, we're stuck in this position where we're attached to it. So why don't we just do bhakti yoga and get all the enjoyment that we want and need? and feel satisfied. And in the meantime, develop some attachment and stability in the practice of Krishna consciousness, even while we're getting the material enjoyment that we want. It may seem like a novel idea because this angle of vision isn't presented so much in the current ISKCON culture. We're a little bit more on the Nivritti marg because that's the general tenor of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The general mood of the Srimad Bhagavatam is towards the Nivritti, renunciation. But the Pravritti marg is there. It's being discussed here. And the results of that are being highlighted so that we can take shelter of that and make advancement that's appropriate for our current level of conditioning. And the fact is, most of us will need a large amount of material enjoyment in this lifetime. I can say that I've had more material enjoyment in my life up till now than I thought I would ever, because it's like my concept of enlightenment. Just to put it in perspective, when I was in college, the concept I had of enlightenment now seems very, very, very low, like a very low level attainment, No more boredom. No more petty anxieties, Practically not having to worry about how I'll maintain myself. Because Krishna is taking care, and he's proven himself that he will always take care of me. And these are just material results of my devotional service, my cultivation of my devotional service. So it's a level of security and happiness and satisfaction on the material sphere that I never thought I'd obtain. That's covetable by my family members who, they still have to, they worry always about their material stability. And by the Lord's grace, we don't have to worry about that anymore. This is a material result of the process of bhakti. So this is something we have to remind ourselves of frequently so that we can remain enthusiastic to actually do the process. Because you don't get the results unless you do the austerities. Krishna. Sometimes, all right, Prabhupada's, there's one statement here we wanted to read. Sometimes a devotee, Krishna. All right, we're going to move on to the next verse. Text 3. The great sage Maitreya said, the sons of King Patinavari, known as the Prachetas, underwent severe austerities within the seawater to carry out the order of their father. By chanting and repeating the mantras given by Lord Shiva, they were able to satisfy Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada writes, one can offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly, but if one repeats the prayers offered by great devotees like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, or if one follows in the footsteps of great personalities, one can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead very easily. So he's saying that the Prachetas, because they took shelter of this mantra given by Lord Shiva, they were able to advance very rapidly. So we've been given the Maha Mantra by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the best mantra. And because it's been given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and it's been received in the civic succession, its potency is even more amplified than if we just came across it in a book. Because we have the right conception and we're authorized. We're authorized by our Guru to chant Hare Krishna. So one can pray their own prayers. This is also nice, but it's especially nice when we pray the prayers given to us by great devotees. And so you have to kind of search out sometimes. You have to search out. There needs to be some reading to be able to come across those prayers that will speak for us, that will fully capture the mood that's in our heart that we want to give voice to. But they're there. We should know that whatever mood we're thinking and feeling in our spiritual life or material life, there's some verse out there that can capture that sentiment. And when we can connect to that, then our prayer becomes very powerful. The process of prayer becomes very powerful, because we're not just doing it like lip service. Actually, our whole heart is entering into the prayer, and it's coming down from a higher plane. So it's something the Lord's already accepted. It's authorized. So it's a very effective strategy for connecting with the Lord through prayer. Another thing that we can note here in text 3 is that actually this word Paranjana has come up again, but in this case it refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paranjana. Prabhupada writes, here the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described as Paranjana. According to Madhvacharya, the living entity is called Paranjana because he has become an inhabitant of this material world, and under the influence of the three modes of material nature, he is forced to live within it, the three modes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead creates the material world, Pura, and he also enters within it. Antantarasta paramanu chayantarastha. The Lord enters within the heart of the living entity and within the atom. Therefore, both the living entity and the Lord are called Paranjana. One Paranjana, the living entity, is subordinate to the Supreme Paranjana. Therefore, the duty of the subordinate Paranjana is to satisfy the Supreme Paranjana. That is devotional service. So sometimes father might name his son James Jr., the big James and the little James. So similarly, we've inherited this name Paranjana from Krishna. We're the living entity residing in the body, and he's the living entity who's animating the entire cosmic manifestation. So it's a one term for the Lord and for the living entity. You find that often. And impersonalists, they cling to these instances that the Lord is sometimes called Atma because he's the self of the self. Sometimes the Lord is referred to as Brahman, and the Jiva, also living entity, is sometimes referred to as Brahman because the living entity is spiritual. But the Supreme Lord is the source of all spirit. So the impersonalists cling to these instances and try to build their whole case for the whole philosophy on these very select few instances where absolute oneness seems to be indicated. But we shouldn't be confused. Text 4. At the end of 10,000 years of severe austerities performed by the Prachetas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to reward their austerities, appeared before them in his very pleasing form. This appealed to the Prachetas and satisfied the labor of their austerities. Prabhupada writes, performing 10,000 years of severe austerities does not seem a happy endeavor. Yet the devotees, the serious students of spiritual life, undergo such austerities to attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he gives examples. He gives the example of Valmiki, he gives the example of Dhruva. There are many devotees. We can see throughout the Bhagavatam and throughout the Vedic scriptures so many examples of persons who performed austerity. There's no dearth of, no lack of examples for us that we can take inspiration from. And not just in the Bhagavatam, but today. So many austerities performed. Look at the austerities performed by Prabhupada's disciples. to spread the Hare Krishna movement, which we're benefiting from today. So the main obstacle in performing austerity is we start to become very proud, and then in order to check our pride, Krishna steals he takes away again whatever potency he's given to us to be able to perform the austerity, because he doesn't want us to become proud and commit offenses. So the trick to performing austerity successfully is to, one, recognize that whatever capacity you have to do the austerity is coming from your guru, and two, to remain very humble and serve the devotees. That you do austerities for service, not austerities for your own aggrandizement or self-benefit. We do austerity for the sake of becoming a more fit instrument. Or if we have to do some austerity for some selfish reason, at least we should remain humble and think, because I'm fallen, I have this desire, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to do it for the pleasure of Krishna. Text 5. The personality of Godhead appearing on the shoulder of Garuda seemed like a cloud resting on the summit of the mountain known as Meru. The transcendental body of the personality of Godhead was covered with attractive yellow garments, and his neck was decorated with the jewel known as Kaustuba Mani. The bodily effulgence of the Lord dissipated all the darkness of the universe. So this is the best possible outcome of our austerities, is that the Lord himself will actually come before us. But that may not happen. Instead, we may get some other special reciprocation, such as a deepened appreciation for Srimad Bhagavatam. That the Lord will appear to us in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. That we'll realize, wow, all this time, there's such sweetness to be had in the pages of the Bhagavatam. Or a deepened appreciation for chanting the holy name. Actually, every day, if we live an austere life and try to make service the center of our life, then every day we'll get newer taste, newer and newer excitement in our practice of Krishna consciousness. And so it's a thrill. Somewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says the devotee, he lives life with a thrill at every moment. So it's not a dull thing to be a devotee of Krishna. It's not a dull thing at all. Patinavari has a question here. We're going to get to that. We got 2 more texts to cover, and then we'll have that question, and then open it up a little bit and try to end on time. Text 6. The Lord's face was very beautiful, and his head was decorated with a shining helmet and golden ornaments. The helmet was dazzling and was very beautifully situated on his head. The Lord had 8 arms, which each held a particular weapon. The Lord was surrounded by demigods, great sages, and other associates. These were all engaged in his service. Garuda, the carrier of the Lord, glorified the Lord with Vedic hymns by flapping his wings. Garuda appeared to be an inhabitant of the planet known as Kinnara Loka. And we'll just go to the next one. Text 7. Around the neck. When we're done, we're almost done. Just 10 more minutes. Around the neck of the personality of Godhead hung a flower garland that reached to his knees. His 8 stout and elongated arms were decorated with that garland which challenged the beauty of the goddess of fortune. With a merciful glance and a voice like thunder, the Lord addressed the sons of King Patinavari, who were very much surrendered unto him. So there were a few other points that I had thought to discuss, but they're somewhat secondary points in terms of what we've discussed today. The only other point I'll bring out from this last verse is Prabhupada in his purport. He says, the word Adya in this verse is very significant. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin even of Paramatma and Brahman. So here, Lord Vishnu, Krishna's expansion, is being described by this term Adya, Adyaha, which means the first or the original personality of Godhead, which means that all the other great personalities such as Brahma and Shiva, and even the Brahman, the Brahman effulgence, the impersonal effulgence of the Lord, all of these things are expanding from the Vishnu Tattva, which is Adya. And among all of the Vishnu Tattvas, Krishna is the original. And Prabhupada quotes the Brahma Samhita, Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. That Govinda is the beginning without a beginning. Anadir Adir Govinda. All right. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for listening. Anandamari asks, is our ability and capacity to desire restricted by our karma? You know, Udval Prabhu was just giving a talk on this topic of karma and free will, and I didn't catch all of it, but I'll see if I can find the link and send that to you. That's a good, or you could just chat with him about it. It's a subtle topic. I don't have perfect grasp of the question. One thing I can say for certain is in the conversation between Lord Brahma and Krishna. Yeah, I'll fix it in just a minute. In the conversation between Lord Krishna and Brahma in the Srimad Bhagavatam, either I mix up these chapters because they're somewhat similar. Canto 2, Chapter 9, and Canto 3, Chapter 9. One of those. Krishna says that your desire to perform austerity for my pleasure is my mercy. You should understand that to be my mercy. So in that particular case, it's clear that even our desire to perform devotional service is mercy. That's why you see devotees expressing such a mood of helplessness. What is that? Ha ha, ha ha, Prabhu, Koro Doya, Deho More Pada Chaya. Oh Prabhu, ha ha, Prabhu, Prabhu, please, please give me the shade of your lotus feet. Because unless you show me mercy, I have hope. Now this is a mood. Obviously there's something of the living entity that is engaged and participating. It's not just a totally passive thing. That's our individuality. Our individuality is our desire. Anandamari says, in other words, our capacity to desire spiritually is that limited by our material position. Similarly, our capacity to have clear desire materially limited by our material baggage. All right, so did you guys catch that? I read it a little bit fast. I'll read it again. In other words, is our capacity to desire spiritually is that limited by our material position. Similarly, our capacity to have clear desire materially limited by our material baggage. So, to the second half of this question, Krishna in the second chapter talks about Buddhi Yoga, Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekeho Kurunanna Bahushaka Hyanatascha. I can't remember the last line. But the important line is Bahushaka Hyanatascha. It's unlimited branches of desire. That's the position of persons in the material sphere, because the modes are conflicting for dominance. And so at any given time, we're going to manifest this kind of a desire, this kind of desire. Before I go to sleep, I think I want to wake up and chant in the morning. And then in the morning, I think I want to stay asleep. So there's no clarity of desire there because the modes are conflicting. So definitely our material baggage is causing a permanent situation of conflict. You can't exist on a material plane without being conflicted, a conflicted soul. One who is Brahman realized no longer has any conflict because there's no cause, they no longer have any interest in this world. So there's nothing to be conflicted about. It's all illusory. And beyond that, Bhagavan realization means I'm a servant of Krishna, and in every scenario, how can I be of service to him? So that's a spiritual realization, and it's the spiritual desire. The fundamental spiritual desire is how can I serve Krishna? And then the specifics of that desire will be determined by our specific spiritual identity and the specific spiritual relationships we have. And at the present time, that's being mediated through the spiritual master who's giving us service, assigning us service. And there's also the spiritual master within the heart who's enlightening us from within that I want you to do this for me. I think you should do this for me. And maybe speaking from without through others. Like Prabhupada, there was one, he was writing this magazine, Back to Godhead, and then somebody said, just a casual, seemingly casual comment, I think you should write books because books are more permanent. And Prabhupada took that as the instruction of his spiritual master coming through this person. So it's not that the voice of Sri Guru is limited to a particular physical embodiment. We have to develop a broad-minded vision that Sri Guru is speaking to us constantly from every side, inside, outside, everywhere. And we want to develop a hearing, a capacity to hear for that revelation, that guidance. That's very important. And it comes with practice and maturity. And so that basically either we're desiring materially or we're desiring spiritually. It can be made that simple. There is such a thing as mixed, but even in a mix, one's going to outweigh the other, even in a mix. So there's no staying stationary in spiritual life. You have to remain forward-minded, moving in the direction of Krishna. And as long as some movement is taking place, then we can call it a spiritual desire, because Krishna is winning out in the mix, if that makes sense. So is our capacity to desire spiritually limited by our material position? It's limited by our attachments to matter, but it's not limited by material circumstances, because ultimately material circumstances are created by the Lord. We hear in the famous verse, Tatenu Kampam, etc., that the Lord personally dishes out the situation of the living entity who's surrendered to him, just like a doctor giving a dose of medicine. So our material circumstances are never inhibiting our spiritual advancement. It's our attachments. Hare Krishna. I hope that's somewhat clear, and please consult with other learned devotees for any clarification, or we can discuss more. I'm sure you have a lot of good thoughts about this too. All right, any other final comments, questions? We covered a lot. We discussed a lot of different types of things. So it's sometimes difficult to keep tabs on everything. All right. What about you, Janaki? Any questions? No? You're happy? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Hari Hari Bol. Vancha Kalpa Krishna. Kripa Sindhu Chapati. All right, thank you everyone for joining in. Oh wait, Nahusha has one quick question. I'll just cover it in 10 seconds. Question I have is, asking for something material so that we can be situated in a place where we can practice devotional service, is that acceptable? Yes. Yes, but we should not wait to practice devotional service until the material desire is fulfilled. We should practice devotional service immediately with full intensity. The Bhagavatam verse says, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. We quoted that one. I believe it's 2, 3, 10, or 11. Canto 2, chapter 3, 10, or 11. So we have to practice intense devotional service right now, being confident that the Lord will supply all of our material needs. Hare Krishna.